Welcome to the battle report for server 384. News is coming in via our correspondent Ferrus Doombeard. Report follows. In 2021, the war for Middle-earth spreaded across the kingdoms. After a month of preparations, Erebor abandoned its neutrality and got involved in the conflict between the central Middle-earth forces of Lothlorien, Rohan, and Erebor against the Dark Alliance of Angmar, Rhûn, Isengard, and Mordor. For Erebor, this was the way to achieve the craved territorial unification, a mirage now after the wars from old. In the autumn of 2021, the first Dwarven army entered Angmar, and the second liberated the lands south of the Iron Hills and south and west of Rhûn, but their offensive was stopped by the Elven command. After not being pushed away into the Ashen Plains, the Dark Forces established a front line at Dorwinion's crossing to Ashen Plains as part of the emerged Mordor's front. This was the beginning of a glorious epic. This important strategic position closed the roads to the heart of central Middle-earth. Dorwinion's significance was appreciated by the Dark Alliance as early as October of 2021, and they sought to conquer the area at all costs. In the end of November, Mordor troops attacked, but the dwarves repelled them at the cost of heavy losses. The high number of casualties made the dwarves realize that the position had not been sufficiently fortified. In the next 3 days, new defenses were built around Dorwinion's crossing. 3 main lines of defense, front, intermediate, and main, were engineered with high-level forts and a fortress at the main line to protect each dwarf from enemy attacks. Colonel Lintz had the main merit for the defense of Dorwinion's crossing. Just a few days after taking command of the 3rd Iron Hills Division and defending this section of the front, there was a second unsuccessful attack from the Mordor troop. It was here that General Wraith was badly injured, and his forces were defeated for the first time since the war began. Later that day, the Orcs attacked again, but the result was much the same. The defeat of the Orcs was so severe that they made a third attempt only after an entire day to recuperate. In the following hours, 17 Mordor armies, thousands of troops, were ready for a new attack. The unprecedented occupying of the tiles in the area lasted for almost 4 hours. As a Dwarven officer recalled, the fire had overturned the whole position. Whole slopes were pulled down. The tiles were unrecognizable. The forts were broken. The friendly tiles were torn and overtaken. And to ensure that the defenders were eliminated, the Orcs for the first time used long marches from afar for this position. 9 long marches in all, one after another. Then, on the next day at 4:30 in the morning, thousands of Orcs rushed forward. As a great surprise to the attackers, the Dwarven defenders expected them. They had prepared excellently under the leadership of the newly promoted General Lintz, and their fortifications stood the hundreds of attacks and were pre-equipped with extra troops. The immense superiority in arms and numbers of the Orcs were compensated by the dwarves with incredible endurance and iron will. Each commander knew his task, and the soldiers knew the position well. Especially important was the Brotherhood in Arms, forged with fire, which was a determining factor for the future victory. Equally important was the established relationship between the clan officers and the soldiers, when the commanders declared, "Together, we will die." Now these were not just words, or as a commanding officer of a company said to his soldiers, "Behind us is Erebor, our bases, our lands. We have to keep them." The officers were not hiding behind the front lines, but were at the center of the defense. When the front position was broken, Major Adarosa led 3 of his armies into a fierce counterattack. A handful of heroes against the enemy chain, which did not withstand the blow, even though Major Adarosa's armies were crushed, picked up on the Orcish spears. The struggle was for every tile, and the most commonly heard command was, "Protect the tiles!" Because there were fierce attacks for every piece of ground, shocked, one Orcish major told his soldiers, "Learn to die like the dwarves, then you will beat them." And if the Orcs managed to overcome the front and intermediate line, it was only because of their crushing numerical superiority. On the 2nd of December, after another massive attack, huge enemy masses were thrown to the headline position. General Lintz was waiting for the decisive moment and threw into the battle the small but precious reserves of the division. With an irresistible counterattack, the dwarves returned the intermediate position and then the front line. At the end of the day, the battlefield was strewn with 700,000 Orcish dead. For the 3rd Iron Hills Division, 300,000 killed or missing, which represented half of its total strength. It was of no coincidence that in World Chat, Dorwinion's crossing was named the Little Osgiliath. In 24 hellish hours of continuous struggle, the final winner was the Iron Will of the Dwarfs. But right after the success on the 3rd of December, General Lintz got an order to abandon the position. The Mordor's front is penetrated elsewhere, at Dol Guldur. With tearful eyes, the dwarves left the tiles and forts that they had defended yesterday, the tiles and forts that were bathed with the blood of their brothers. But even on the 4th of December, the Orcs did not dare to move closer to the abandoned position. In the weeks to come, the memory of the Dorwinions' crossing epic warmed the hearts of the dwarves, because it best met the words of General Ferrus Doombeard, defeated without being beaten. And a new announcement just in. Previously separated friends, allies, and even couples have been reunited in a rollback of a controversial server reconfiguration initiative. One player remarked, "Finally, I can fight with those that I trust in our campaign to make all of Middle-earth united under our banner."